morning, Mr. Danin. How are you?
I am very well, thank you, and happy to be sitting here.
Yeah, I'm glad. Today we'll talk a little bit about high stakes testing and education.
Okay.
So I would like to know your opinion on the difference between education before and after the No Child Left Behind.
Okay. Well, let me say this. I started teaching back in the early 1980s. So 1984 was my first year. So I'm almost hitting 30 years now. And that was a good 10 years before No Child Left Behind. And the biggest difference I see before both No Child Left Behind and the high stakes testing is teachers being and feeling more accountable for what they're teaching. When I first started out, subjects like science were taught, or topics in science were taught pretty much whatever the teacher felt like teaching. So a child could very easily learn about dinosaurs in kindergarten, and again in first grade, and again maybe in third grade, because the teachers that child had liked teaching dinosaurs. No one was checking to see what the children were learning. And a lot of teaching back then was based on what teachers felt kids needed to know in their hearts, rather than what perhaps they actually did need. And I think No Child Left Behind and the high stakes testing defined that, but also gave educators a bullseye to shoot for. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to teach. I know by the end of the year my students need to know how to do this, 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 and this. And I think that's helped. I think it has given teachers a map to follow. Whereas before, everyone was just kind of wandering around on their own.
Interesting. Thank you. And what do you think? So then, what has it been the impact of high stakes testing on the style of teaching? I know, like, you can tell maybe your experience from how it has impacted your teaching and others now that you're observing teachers.
Sure. Well, one thing that is unfortunate about high stakes testing is many teachers feel as though, I know it's going to be on the test, so this is what I'm going to teach, and only what I'm going to teach, and I'm going to teach it exactly the way I know that the people who score the test want it to be. Rather than looking at that list of standards that we're given and saying, all right, here's what the children need to know. But then working with their class and realizing, oh, they're weak in this area. Well, I better fill that gap in. I'm going to separate. I'm going to get away from this list of standards. And my students need this right now. And once they're ready once they understand this, then we swing back to the standards. Some folks just stick way too much to that list. And they fly through the school year making sure they are able to check off every single thing. I taught this, I taught this, I taught this, taught this, taught this, taught this. And not reacting to what their students' needs are.
Yeah.
It's what the list needs instead of what the kids need.
So do you think they would be more effective without having high stakes?
Let's put it this way. I don't want you to misunderstand. I like the standards.
Yeah.
I think that, again, they give the roadmap. I think the high-stake testing puts pressure on teachers, as I said, to run through the checklist instead of reacting to what children's needs are. And that's not true of every teacher, but in many cases, including us at the charter school, people feel as though their performance evaluation is going to be based on how their students performed, and that's too bad. It makes teachers feel anxious, and if I could get rid of the high stakes testing but keep the standards, that would be a perfect world. But we have to do something to make sure we're teaching the standards. So it's sort of the how do I put it? It's sort of the negative that's connected to the positive.
Yeah, makes sense. And do you think that these tests objectively measure all students' performance?
No. Some students test well, and some students do not. And too often I have seen scores come back on students who are actually very good students, but because of that one day they had the math MCAS, they came to school with a fever because they didn't want to miss MCAS. They didn't perform there as well as they do daily. They had that off day. And their scores come back and say that they are below grade level when they're not. But that's what gets published in the newspapers, is how districts do, not taking into consideration how intimidating these tests are, especially the kids at the elementary school level.
Yeah.
I also think at the middle school level, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, children are going through a lot of bodily changes and hormone changes. The world is all about them. These tests don't matter to them anymore at this point in their life, so they don't put as much effort into them. It's not until they get to high school, when they're more mature, and they know they need to pass the MCAS to graduate, that they get serious about it again. So I think at the middle school level, we usually see a dip in scores in pretty much every district, because that's the age level of kids that,